And we're back. Welcome, everyone. We're diving straight into the patch notes for Keepers of the Flame. I'm happy that they actually released them like clockwork. I deliberately put the stream at like a quarter past midnight, but it's here, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. So our focus is to look for potential nerfs that might have an impact on the game in general. And our other focus is to look for soul rest or phantasm related stuff. In fact, Control F, soul rest, no changes. Phantasm, no changes. Good. So my league starter is seemingly unaffected for now. But yeah, let's dive in, shall we? Yeah, so the Challenge League, we obviously know by now. We discussed that in the previous stream. The reveal, all the stuff that is bound to it. Basically, Breach 2.0, Keepers of the Flame. So this speaks for itself. New content and features, right? Conflagration for the fire arrows from the storm. Yes, you could predict this. Okay, yeah. So this is the skill that I was curious about. So fires an initial projectile, which applies a kinetic barrier to enemies struck. This barrier will absorb incoming damage from hits up to a cap. On reaching this cap, the barrier will explode, dealing damage in an area and releasing a projectile which will seek another nearby target. I believe this is the one that was shown, or was it not? No, never mind. No, it was Wall of Force. This is the one I was looking forward to in regards to Soul Rest Phantasm, right? So yeah, Wall of Force. Creates a Wall of Force which allies and enemies can pass through. Ally projectiles which can chain will collide with this wall, chaining off of it to nearby targets. Projectiles which collide with a Wall of Force cannot collide with any further walls of force. Okay, so that would require us to equip our Phantasms with some form of chaining. Well, kind of hard to read, to be honest. Is that better? Hold up, let me do it like this. There we go. That 150%. That should be good. Let me know if that's better. I mean, obviously on the short stream, it's much more difficult to read. What I can do is just zoom it in to like 200. There we go. That should be better. Yes. But in any case, I'm reading it out loud as well. But thank you, Fabian. Thank you for that. I should have zoomed in from the start. Anyway, Wall of Force, an interesting potential gem combined with Phantasms. But that means we need to give the Phantasms a form of chaining, which might be a thing. So we'll see. Kinetic Rain, Impact, Wind Burst, supports attack skills, trigger Wind Burst on hits. No. Living Lightning. No, so none of this seems relevant for minion builds or whatever. New uniques, new div cards. Yeah, this is the Foulborn currency. Very much so, thank you. Awesome. Let's see. Augmentation implant, regal implants, exactly for that crafting that they talked about. Added asynchronous trades. Yes. Access the Merchants tab, upgrade tool. So yeah, any Merchants tabs that we had already. Yeah, if you've already purchased Merchants tabs in Path of Exile 2, these will now be available for use when you log into Path of Exile. Perfect, as expected. In-game trade market interface has also been added. I didn't use it that much. It's useful for certain map purchases, but that's about it. When Spectres die, they now transform. Oh yeah, this was a Spectre quality of life thing. Stack deck quality of life. New stash tab affinities for incubators, reports, ritual items, sanctums, and settler items. This is nice. Affinities are always welcome. So that's really good. New tab for betrayal fragments. Okay. Yeah, full respec that we talked about. Kirak for Atlas respec. I don't see anything new in here per se, except for the stash tab affinities. That's really nice. Okay, Bloodlines. What do we got? Added Bloodline classes to the base game. Secondary Ascendancy classes that are unlocked on a character-by-character basis through defeating specific endgame bosses, much like the Abyssal Lich in PoE 2, where you have to get the invitation from the initial boss and then, do the Vessel of Kulamak. Bloodline classes can be paired with any Ascendancy class and are allocated with your normal Ascendancy passive skill points. You can decide how many points to allocate to your original Ascendancy class and how many to allocate to your Bloodline. So we only know about 3 out of 10. So we have to discover the remaining 7. That's probably not going to happen until data mining, which also might not happen until the actual game launch. It's just like with PoE 2's 0.3 update. They didn't include the decryption for 0.3. So we had to wait until literally the launch to be able to see what was going on under the hood. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did it again for 3.27. So, Okay. These bloodlines can be absolutely game-changing, so we'll have to see how that goes. Endgame changes. The new fragments for the Uber versions of Zana bosses. They dropped from tier 17, which we talked about or saw. The feared Maven invitation now requires Cyrus and the Incarnation of Dread to be witnessed instead of Chayula and Adziri. That's fair, because there are some changes, of course, to Breach bosses. Maven invitation is now replaced with the Remembered, requiring witness of those. So that's the older stuff, I believe. Yes. Tier 70 map modifiers now grants item rarity, red maps, except I don't know if this is a buff or a nerf. Tier 70 maps can now sometimes be corrupted to have 8 modifiers. Oh yeah, let's make them even harder, am I right? Let's see, the Abyss Scarab. Whoa. The Abyss Scarab of Edifice no longer causes abysses in area to spawn hordes as they travel. It instead now causes abyss pits in area that do not lead to an abyssal depth or spawn an abyssal trove, will spawn minor stitching spires. Oh god, yeah, this has been ultra nerfed now. This is what I was talking about potential nerfs, right? This was my go-to strategy in 3.26. The hordes farming. It's gone. It's effectively gone. So, yeah. Shit. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, okay, to be fair, right? Breach 2.0, huh? Keepers is going to be the main thing anyway, but that's guaranteed. I'm actually really curious what I'm going to spec into now that can pair well with Breach in a map. So we'll have to see how that goes. Oh, Mifa sleeping next to me. Additional bosses from Blight Scarab of Blooming no longer spawn extra monsters in their wave. This is something I was also running sometimes. Cartography Scarab of Risk now has a limit of 1. Gee, surprise. Following maps have been added back. A whole bunch have been removed. Okay. Map tiers have been shuffled. Map bosses have changed. Yep. Typical map changes, bossing changes in that regard, so that's fine. Let's see here. Atlas Path for 3. So in the Keepers of Flame League, Breach clusters have been removed because, Breach is no longer a thing. It's now Keepers. Straight and narrow, reinstated, Keepers of Flame. So I don't know about this Voltaxic Sulfide thing, whether that's a buff or a nerf. Previously, so they're buffing increased magic monsters, increased rare monsters. Okay. Don't know how impactful this is. Increase the rarity. So some changes to rarity and... some changes to rarity and quantity. I do not know the impact of this. I haven't played with this. Okay, League changes. Breach League uniques are no longer upgraded. Blessings now only upgrade Breach stones. Boo. Hello, Sophie. Welcome to the stream. Breach is no longer a reward outcome from other content. That's fair. Exactly. The Old Flame Ember of Kulamak is unable to substitute. Cannot produce outcome containing Breach. So in other words, a whole bunch of Breach content has to be removed or replaced with alternatives. This pretty much speaks for itself. Okay, Foul Breach will be unobtainable during Keepers of the Flame. Okay. Yeah. Rogues in the Rogue Harbor now start at maximum level. Yeah, this is a buff to the heist mechanic for the, free people out there that run that. I respect y'all. I see y'all. I respect y'all. Opening a Blight chest now opens other Blight chests within 1.5 meters. Huge, massive, running Blight. Characters now required to have entered Highgate in Act 9 in order to open safe houses or enter safe house portals. Interesting. Probably some really weird mechanic that was being abused here potentially. I don't know. Syndicate medallions are now more common. Now less likely so some minor changes to betrayal rewards. Some harvest stuff. Hold up. Harvest reforged crafts which guarantee a certain modifier type, such as reforge a rare with, including a lightning, will now respect modifiers on items which restrict modifiers types. Oh, that's a crafting buff. Nice. Nice. For those who are interested in that. When re-rolling recruits, disenchanting, less chance, re-roll. Abandoning warns you about the loss of crew members. Rogue exiles drop fewer regular items. Okay, that might actually be a buff in that sense. Gigantic are revived in rituals as regular rogue exiles. That's a nerf. For those who are farming or using that mechanic. Bestiary stuff, all good stuff. Oh, nice. The voices and whispers during delirium encounters are now considered ambient sound volume rather than sound effects. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Okay. Drowning orbs no longer drown the player faster when they have sources of debuffs on you expire faster. Just such a specific change. I love it. Spell suppression now prevents 40% of damage. A spell suppression nerf. Damn. I was not expecting that. Okay, minion attacks now inherently always hit. Doesn't affect Soulrest Phantasm because it's a spell. Removed all sources of minion accuracy, although existing, yada yada. Okay. Work with the, okay, so a specific change to the wording for rings. So yeah, this is actually big. Minion attacks now inherently always hit. Not having to worry about accuracy at all is huge. Also, removed all sources of minion accuracy from the game. This is effectively a buff to Ghastly Jewels because you can no longer run minion accuracy or, roll minion accuracy on those things. I like that. I really like that. That actually means that it's slightly easier to get good Ghastly Eyes. And again, you don't have to worry about accuracy anymore, which is massive. Okay, skill gem changes. Not a lot, seemingly, but let's see. So I'm not going to bother too much with the attacks. With that said, Cyclone buff, 20% more damage. We're so back. Actually, I love Cyclone, but... Okay, Bladefall, don't care about that. Blast Rain, Blink Arrow, Bone Shatter. Don't really care. Convocation. Now a white gem, similar to Detonate Mines, and no longer has any attribute requirements. Oh, I love that, because specifically for Soulrest Phantasm, we run Triad Grip. Let me actually pull that up, right? So, Path of Building. Blee, blue, blah. I actually have the build here. I'm working on it, the PoB with all the stuff. So we run Triad Grip with green sockets to convert our minion damage to cold. Having another white gem is actually really, really nice. Because you can slot that into the gloves, which would otherwise be hard to kind of utilize in gloves, right? Like we would use Second Wind, Dash, Sniper's Mark. Yeah, I think I might actually drop Portal at that point. Yeah, actually, yeah, you know what? No, that is massive, because I can drop Portal, put Convocation in here. I might drop Steel Skin and Automation to then make room for that wall of... whose mom was it? Wall of Force, right. That might make some potential room for Wall of Force, so I'm really looking forward to doing that. Okay, back to skill gem changes. So, Dark Pact, base critical strike chance of 7%. Dark Pact buffs. I loved that. I love that. Explosive Concoction, don't care. Exsanguinate now deals 50% more base physical damage per second. Transmission. I played this in 3.25 Frisia. This is a nice little buff. It's still not insanely strong, but it is a nice buff. This is very playable. It's very playable, and it's not too crazy to get going, but it is an expensive build to max out, especially if you want that specific playstyle with life reservation, which I played. Okay, Flames of Judgment, Hex Blast, don't really care, yada yada. Poisonous Concoction now has, nerfed, added chaos damage. Okay, so less base damage that's added, and now it scales harder off a flask recovery amount. Yeah. Okay, so slight change in scaling. I'm specifically mentioning this for Blubs. Maybe he wants to play something like this, but I don't know. Power class, Reap. Now deals 50%. Okay, so just basically 50% more damage on Reap plus Exsanguinate. Awesome. I presume this also applies to Val Reap then. I presume it does. Shield Crush, Spectral Helix, Spectral Throw, Storm, yada yada yada. Don't really care about the rest for my particular purposes. Yeah, Val Gem, there we go. See, yeah. Val Reap, Val Cyclone. Yeah, those are buffed as well, obviously. Okay. Support gem changes. Awakened Hex Touch support. Supported skills now have less curse duration. Previously reduced. Okay, so this could be a harsh penalty, depending. Corrupting Cry. Okay, Energy Leech. No longer has super deal more damage while leeching. Now deal more damage while on full energy shields. Okay, interesting. So basically the same change to the normal Hex Touch support. Rupture. Can now stack up to 4 times. Oh. Okay, so that's also a damage increase for the Reap Exsanguinate builds. Cool, cool. Damaging ailments inflicted with supported skills now deal damage 60 to 98% faster. Now has 70% less duration. So this sadism, I believe sadism is run specifically... I think you could run sadism. I don't remember. Hold up. Do I have my 3.25 Star Caller? No, I don't have my Reap in here. Oh, right, because it was also, of course, a legacy leak, right? It was Frisia. Spellslinger support, slight buff. Yeah, previously 37. Yeah, slight buff. Okay, ascendancy changes. These are important. So Assassin we know about. Chieftain and Champion. Okay, that's a small buff. Small buff. Assassin we know now. Trickster. Don't see anything too interesting, but let me go through it real quick. Now grants every 10 seconds take 50%, 40, 50%. So survivability buff. They removed while leeching. Interesting. Prevent. Previously 10. So these are actually some spell suppression. These are actually some small nerfs. Damn. Is it 90%? 90%. Okay. Small changes. Small buffs, small nerfs. Okay. Saboteur. Don't care. Elementalist. Ooh, the Legion of Primordial Notable now provides 50%. Oh my god, that is a huge nerf to Elementalist. I don't know how powerful Elementalist was. I don't know if it was overpowered. God, that's hard though. Damn. Necromancer, Corpse, double the increased attack and cast speed for each corpse consumed. So you can reach the potential cap faster, depending on. That's cool. Pathfinder, don't care. Warden, don't care. Remove the accuracy map. Oh, wait, yeah. Replaced. Increased cooldown recovery rate. Ooh, we're getting cool. Yeah, so they're specifically referring to... Oh, restart. Thank you. So it's this cluster, right? No, wait. Where's accuracy? Yeah, no, it is this. Yeah, exactly. So instead of 20% increased minion accuracy rating, this will have 20% increased minion cooldown recovery rates. I mean, that's actually, I think that's pretty massive for some builds. Yeah, because that would allow frenzy generating minions or specters, for example, to do their thing more often. That's actually pretty huge. That's huge quality of life on some builds. Supportive specters, I think. Maybe even damaging specters, I'm not sure. That's awesome. Grave Pact, Passive Tree Cluster now grants Chaos Res instead of minion accuracy. Grave Pact. That's this one, right? Yeah. So it grants minion? No, it just grants Chaos Res. Probably minion Chaos Res? But if it's player Chaos Res, that's actually rather nice, but we'll have to see what it actually is. Okay, unique item changes. I'm specifically going to look for stuff that I will use on the Soul Rest Phantasm. So I'm just going to go through some stuff here. And of course, Nebulous. Okay, there's actually not a lot. Yeah, I don't see anything interesting here. These are very specific, unique changes. Okay, I'm gonna skip past those. Item changes. Yeah, this is a change for the minion accuracy. Some rune grafting stuff that I never got into. Interesting. You can no longer obtain rings in Delve that have the curse skills have increased skill effect duration modifier. So they're making some changes in the background to both spell leech, like effects while leeching, energy shield, and some curse duration related things. Interesting. They're probably building up towards something. Nobody obtains base critical strikes. So some base critical strike chance changes to a lot of weapons. Mostly buffs, it seems. Some nerfs. Okay. Just some changes specifically for weapons. Ruthless specific, no one cares. Monster changes. Refactored how monsters with physical damage converted to elemental damage scale with monster modifiers and map modifiers that grant Fizz gained as extra. Far less effect on high-level monsters that converted most, if not all. That's actually a pretty big survivability buff, because I remember that specifically in 3.26, that some of those monsters would hit pretty hard. Adjusted the incarnations, less life, but more damage or debuff potency. I love that. I love that. Make them hit harder, but make them easier to kill. Yeah. Detonation speed of most monster volatile cores can no longer scale with attack or cast speed. So that's what it was. Oh my god, that was driving me insane in 3.26, right? There were times where volatiles would go off much faster, and I was like, do they scale with attack or cast speed? Huh? So they do. Damn it. Yeah, additionally, the ability for some sources of volatile cores to ignore block, evasion, spell suppression has been removed. Why was this in the game to begin with? Why do you insist on killing players with bullshit after death or on death mechanics? I'm glad they're making this change. Volatile cores from the tier 17 map modifiers and specific ritual monsters have also had their damage reduced. Thank God. Okay. That I might actually be willing to look into tier 17s now, because that made them unplayable for me. Malachi should now remove. Okay, improve the visuals. Peak patch notes. Improve the visuals and audio of the on-death effect from vibrant gargoyles. Someone looked into those gargoyles and I was like, yeah, no, we can do better. I love very specific changes like this. Kirak League modifiers. Abyss is now free Chaos Orbs, but this one got nerfed hard because we no longer get the treasure hoards, right? Causes the area to contain... So Ambush is now 4 Chaos, still very cheap. Anarchy, that's Rogue Exiles, exactly. Shrines are slightly more expensive, and they're just reshuffling. Torment now costs 2. Breach has been removed, obviously. Settlers now cost 5. Legion costs 3. Legion is cheap. Ooh. I think I might spec into Legion for 3.27 because it's cheap here to guarantee it. Okay, to be fair, they nerfed it. Yeah, okay, they did nerf it. It's only 1 Legion now. Still, for free Chaos, I think that's fine. Yeah. Okay, quest rewards. Kinetic Rain, Kinetic Fusillade. I so want to look into Kinetic Fusillade for PoE 1. If it's similar to PoE 2, I'm... So yeah, where these new gems are being basically offered. All good stuff. User interface changes. Added an option in gameplay settings to prevent the game from pausing during gameplay. Interesting. Okay. Added an indicator for your current thaumaturgic dust. That's fine. Hold Alt for the Orb of Alteration. Yes. Multiple gems leveling. Quality of life. Disenchanting. This is basically everything that... Yeah. The cursor size UI option has been changed to a slider. That's nice. We can be more specific. That's nice. Portal access options now accessible by using a controller. Yada yada. Nothing too major. Bug fixes. Nothing. Okay, let me refresh the page, actually, to see if they've added anything. They haven't added anything yet. Yeah, this was it already. This was actually it. These are very simple patch notes, which I was kind of expecting. But all in all, no major nerfs that I can immediately see. Sure, Ellie got hit hard. Literally half the effect of golems. Pretty massive, if you ask me. But overall, that's way better than I was expecting, I'll be honest. I was expecting sweeping nerfs or massive changes. Oh, God, I want to know what the bloodline... whatchamacallit? The bloodlines are now. We'll have to wait an entire week for that, though. So yeah, this was incredibly straightforward. I think that if you're looking to play certain builds, overall in 3.26, build variety was through the roof. The game was in a really good state, as far as I could tell and could, I don't know, notice from PoE Ninja and whatnot. For the most part, yeah, I think it's a great time to experiment with these new skill gems. Kinetic Fusillade is definitely going to be played a lot. I can already tell. As soon as that skill came up, the chat went wild with Fusillade, so looking forward to seeing what people do with this one. I'm going to be testing out Wall of Force, no doubt, and I think Wall of Force with Kinetic Fusillade will probably also be a combo. With all that said, yeah, some cool changes, some cool buffs here and there. Okay, that seems about it. Anything interesting on the subreddits? Cyclone Boys, content updates. Yep, okay. Anything here? Minion attacks. Yep. Oh yeah, that's actually true. This is also, I mean, I don't know to what extent Summon Raging Spirits suffered from accuracy whilst leveling, but this could potentially also be a nice leveling quality of life buff, where you first of all, you don't have to spec into accuracy anymore for your minions while you're leveling. When you reach certain points where the accuracy starts to drop off, right? So that's actually rather nice. Rest in peace, Bama. What is Bama? I don't know. I legitimately don't know. PoE, Bama. What is Bama in PoE? Literally, Blink Arrow. Oh, right, the Blink Arrow, Mirror Arrow build. Yeah, I saw that being very powerful. I never looked into it. I don't know what it is. Bama isn't just dead, it's fucking obliterated. Yeah, welcome to the quadruple nerf, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, exactly. Control F. Mood. Control F-ing your League starter. Yep. So some nerfs in here. Yeah, rest in peace, suppress. Yep. Risk strats dead. Yep. I'm wondering if one of the Bloodlines Ascendancies will have something more for Fizdot. Yeah, actually, that's true. Because as much as it was changed, right? So Exsanguinate, 15% more damage is nice, and I think I was able to reach about 8-9 million DPS, and I think a combined 10 million peak in Frisia, specifically in Frisia. So this is nice, but we need something more on top of it. With all that said, right, like I want to start looking into the League Starter Guide for Soul Rest Phantasm after this, because we got the patch notes early, which is awesome. But the Bloodlines might have a massive effect on how you play certain builds and which builds will be top of the line now. But keep in mind, right, you have to give up Ascendancy points, which on some builds is absolutely a thing. So, for example, if I look at Soul Rest Phantasm, you know, potentially you could give up something like Vaal Bastion, or actually, no, Void Beacon, right? Screw Void Beacon. Okay, the minus 20 to cold res is nice, but it's just 20%, or in this case, 23% more damage. Cool, but if we can get damage or some other really cool thing from a Bloodline, I think it's worth dropping these 2 points. Unholy Authority for +1 curse, we definitely want to keep. Profane Bloom, obviously. Vaal Bastion, well, you could technically drop it. It gives us, just a ton of energy shields. Yeah, we go from like 1386 to 1843 with 100 regen. We have stun immunity. It's a huge source of our survivability combined with Mind Over Matter and Eldritch Battery. So there is a point we could drop. We can drop Void Beacon and spec into one of the Bloodlines. I'm very curious to see what we can do with that. So to summarize, right? This is the path of building of the League starter I'm working on. I'm going to do my absolute best to get a guide for Soul Rest Phantasms out on 64-bit meta in the upcoming week. Hopefully after the weekend. I will try to talk about the bloodlines and some changes that can have an impact on how the build will be played. But this will be a potentially very, very powerful build, the Phantasms. So, just to give a preview, right, we're looking at 6.4 mil baseline here with normal support gems. If we enable Awaken supports, which includes on nerf, you're looking at 7.4 million DPS for a League starter build, I'd like to add. And if you want to scale that to absolute heights by incorporating Animate Guardian buffs, Feeding Frenzy, and Exposed to Cold, and including the temp buff from Val Haste, which we have over here, boom. 15 million peak DPS, and otherwise 12 million relatively sustained if all the buffs from Animate Guardian are properly up. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun to talk about and do a proper build guide for. So if you're interested in that, look forward to that on 64-bit meta in the upcoming week. Yeah, I think I'm just going to call it here and start working on several things. This was a very, very short summary. Obviously, I will link these patch notes in the description so you can have a look at it yourself. Yeah, and be sure to Control F and look for potential stuff for your League starter. In any case, Soul Rest Phantasm is not nerfed, and it might even be stronger than ever, combined with not only some minor changes to the skill tree and Ghastly Eye Jewels, but also potentially with a good bloodline on top. We'll have to see. So I'm going to call it here. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down below. And like I said, I'll link both the patch notes and 64-bit meta in the description so you can check that out later. In any case, hope to see you later. Have a good one.